Today's edition of Vikings Now is presented by PrizePicks, and if you guys plug in promo code HMA, we'll hook you guys up with $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. But coming up on today's show, the Vikings have made 2 more signings after rookie minicamp this weekend. Tom Pelissero, he chimed in on the Vikings quarterback competition. Then I got a take on Kevin O'Connell. A lot of us assume that KOC is going to change his ways and lean more into the run. I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case. Let's start off here with the 2 roster moves the Vikings have made earlier on today after rookie minicamp this weekend. They signed 2 members of their defensive line, Bangally, Kamara, edge rusher out of Kansas, and Smith Vilbert, interior defensive lineman out of North Carolina. Now, starting off here on Bangally, Kamara, started his college career at Pittsburgh for 4 seasons, actually, 2020 to 2023. Had his 5th year at South Carolina in 2024, then his COVID year in 2025 at Kansas. Now, he hasn't been the most productive college athlete. I believe he has only totaled 1.5 sacks in his entire college career, but a big body on the defensive line. And, also with these signings, they could always be the next Jalen Redmond. And I think that's always why it excites me as a Vikings fan, because I remember doing the Jalen Redmond video when he signed. We were saying, all right, he could be a guy that could potentially make the roster. Maybe he ends up being a starter at some point. And it turns out the Vikings were able to land one of the better defensive linemen in the National Football League. So hopefully Kamara can turn out to be that. But how about Vilbert? So Vilbert was actually with Penn State to start his college career from 2020 to 2024. Then he actually transferred to North Carolina. I'm sure he saw Bill Belichick there. Wanted to go get some more run on the Tar Heels and that defensive line in an increased role. But again, he wasn't the most productive in college. Big reason why he did go undrafted and why he is a post-minicamp signing for the Minnesota Vikings. But they're adding a lot of depth to that defensive line. I'll be curious to see how Flores approaches this group. I think it's going to be a rotation on that D-line with Redmond, Banks, Orange, all of these guys just rotating in and out. I mean, Levi Drake Rodriguez, Taron Ingram Dawkins, Elijah Williams. The Vikings got a lot of horses on that defensive line, and they're adding to that with Vilbert and Bangally Kamara here. But I do want to talk about quickly, could the Vikings be signing Cooper Rush? So if you guys don't know, we covered this on a previous show. Cooper Rush was actually the minicamp quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings, which you very rarely see, backup quarterbacks in the NFL throughout their whole career and veterans, go be the quarterback for rookie minicamp. Now, maybe this was just Cooper Rush trying to get around Kevin O'Connell, get around this Vikings organization, up his play. That very well could be the case, but maybe he thinks hey, I could potentially beat out Max Brosmer to be the 4th quarterback. I could maybe beat out Carson Wentz to be the 3rd quarterback. Just definitely interesting that he chose to be the Vikings rookie minicamp quarterback instead of going elsewhere. But I think it is kind of telling that, he decided to do that. Now, do I expect the Vikings to sign him? Maybe to the practice squad potentially, but I will guess that this was just Cooper Rush trying to get reps, trying to improve his game. So do like that there, that the Vikings at least had a veteran running the operations instead of just having a UDFA from name whatever school, there at minicamp. But I do want to show some love to, personally, my favorite Viking of all time. I'm 26 years old, and Adrian Peterson was the guy that made me fall in love with this football team. And he's going to be inducted into the Vikings Ring of Honor, deservedly so. One of the most exciting running backs I've ever seen play the position in National Football League history. His combination of physicality, I'm going to run you over, but also to have that breakaway speed. Adrian Peterson, he was one of the best players in the league. I mean, winning that MVP award in 2012, I was 12, 13 years old at the time. And I remember watching that last game in the basement with my dad when AP was trying to break the record. Now, the Vikings also clinched a playoff berth that game. But it was just awesome seeing AP run the football that year. Some of my favorite memories as a Vikings fan, a young Vikings fan, was with Adrian Peterson. But if you guys could, like this video to show AP some love. And also, hop down to the comment section. Give me your best Adrian Peterson memory. For me, it was a game I was at in Chicago against the Bears, and he ran all over that defense. I think it was probably pretty early on in his career. Maybe it was 2011, 2012. But AP was absolutely awesome that year. So like the video, show AP some love. And coming up, we'll talk about Tom Pelissero. I want to give a massive shout out to a brand new sponsor we have, and that is SeatGeek. Now, when it's time to get out of the house, there's not many better options right now than a ball game. If you guys plug in promo code CHAT10, we'll hook you guys up with 10% off your next set of tickets. And with SeatGeek being MLB's official ticket marketplace, your tickets are fully guaranteed and instantly fulfilled in your account after purchase. MLB is in full swing. The NBA and NHL playoffs are here. The NFL schedule is coming out soon, and you can now get World Cup tickets on SeatGeek. But how about tonight? The Wild have a massive game at home in the NHL playoffs. Game 4 taking on the Colorado Avalanche. And these tickets are a little pricey, which means it's a good time to use that promo code CHAT10 and get 10% off. Now, whether it's a baseball game with the kids or an Ed Sheeran concert with the wife, SeatGeek has your back. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know when you're getting a good deal. So look for the green dots. Green means good, and red means bad. And, of course, I have a code for you guys. Use code CHAT10 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with promo code CHAT10. Make sure you click the link in the comments section and description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. But a massive thank you to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's show. All right, let's talk about what Tom Pelissero had to say on the Vikings quarterback competition. Pretty big storyline across the NFL, not just in Vikings camp. A lot of teams are curious, what's going on now. Everybody assumes that Kyler Murray will end up winning this job, but the Vikings aren't approaching it that way. This is what Pelissero had to say, saying they envision it being a true competition. Kyler Murray versus J.J. McCarthy. From everything that I've understood, it is truly wide open. They're keeping an open mind as a coaching staff. And, no matter how you feel about JJ, no matter how you feel about Kyler Murray, because Vikings fans are split on who should be quarterback one this upcoming season, the Vikings are approaching this the right way. And also, if you are a Kyler guy, which I am, and I think he will be the quarterback here for the Minnesota Vikings next season, I love that he truly came into the situation knowing there's an open competition. Now, obviously, he probably doesn't view J.J. McCarthy as much competition as he failed to be the Vikings quarterback this past season. But Kyler, he could have went to a number of different teams to just been the day one starter. Like, I'm sure if the Dolphins, if the Jets, if a bunch of these teams, they would have offered him the job. They would have said he is the day one starter. Like the Jets told Geno Smith, you're the day one starter. That's not the case with Kyler Murray. He is approaching this like it is a true competition. So I like that mindset from Kyler Murray, not avoiding any smoke. He came to an organization where he knows if he beats him out and he ends up winning this job, like he could really turn around his NFL career with the weapons they have in Minnesota. Now, I say all that to say this. We can all agree on this. The best case scenario for the Minnesota Vikings is that J.J. McCarthy ends up beating out Kyler Murray. Because how huge would that be? And how would we feel about J.J. McCarthy? Because, hey, shock of the Vikings fans, a kid at 23 years old can get better. He can develop. He can turn himself into a better football player than what we saw this past season. If he goes out there and he beats out Kyler Murray and he has a really good season, then we're talking about J.J. McCarthy differently. We're talking about this Vikings organization differently because we would potentially have our franchise quarterback for not just like the short term, like Kyler Murray. If he does a great job with the Vikings, it's probably only a 2 to 3 year window with a smaller quarterback like that, relying on his athletic ability. Once you hit that 30, 31, 32 years old, you do see these quarterbacks in their game fall off a cliff. But like J.J. McCarthy, he's different. He's 23 years old. If he ends up beating them out, Vikings go win 10, 11 games next season, that would be an incredibly successful season, not just for this upcoming year, but for years to come in Minnesota. Now, however, I do fully expect Kyler Murray to be QB1 for all 17 games. And I think Vikings fans need to, really buy into this guy because just everything is about his mindset, his just natural talent that he has out there on the football field. I mean, this guy was undefeated as a high school quarterback in Texas. Like, this wasn't like, playing in Delaware or, random state here. Like, he was the best quarterback in Texas going, I think it was 40-0, went to Oklahoma, won the Heisman, number 1 overall pick, top 10 pick in the MLB draft. Like, Vikings could potentially have a superstar here at the quarterback position. All they need is Kyler, play top 15 quarterback play. Vikings will win a lot of games this upcoming season. So, obviously, injuries can happen, and maybe that's when J.J. McCarthy steps in, play some good football, but I'm very excited to see him play for the Minnesota Vikings. But you guys chime in for me. Who do you think will be QB1 this upcoming season for the Minnesota Vikings? You rolling with K1, Kyler Murray, or you're rolling with 9, J.J. McCarthy? I think it's going to be Kyler, but a little bit of me is hoping that J.J. does go out there and proves a lot of people wrong. But overall, good problem to have for the Vikes. But you guys chime in. Who would be QB1 down below? We'll talk about KOC here in a second, but I want to give a massive shout-out to our good friends at PrizePicks. And if you guys use promo code HMA, we'll hook you guys up with $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks is the best place to win cash while watching sports. The app is really easy to use. All you have to do is pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. PrizePicks is available in most states, including California, Texas, Florida, New York and Minnesota, and they make watching my favorite sporting events that much more enjoyable as I follow my lineup throughout the entire game. And we got action tonight in the playoffs. Going to take the more on Asar Thompson assists, the more on Cade Cunningham points, and the more on Jarrett Allen points in a three-player lineup that pays out $47.50. But fade those picks or tail those picks, just do so at PrizePicks. You guys can follow me over there at Pat Sieps to see all my lineups. But sign up for PrizePicks with promo code HMA and get $50 instantly in lineups when you put your first $5 lineup. Hit that link in the comments section and description of today's show. But a massive, massive shout out to PrizePicks for sponsoring today's show. All right, let's talk about KOC and this Vikings offense heading into the next season. Now, I think all of us are hoping that the Vikings lean more into the run. That has been the biggest gripe with KOC as an offensive play caller. We know what he's about with the passing game concepts. He'll get the most out of the quarterback. But his offense as a whole has struggled in certain spots for the biggest reason that he doesn't lean more on the run, or that the fact that the running game hasn't been too effective. Now, I think the Vikings will operate the same offensively, but they will try to just be more efficient running the football. And you may be saying, well, Patrick, they brought in Max Bredesen. They still got Josh Oliver. You know, they brought in Juwan Jennings, a big slot wide receiver who's good at blocking. Like, you would think that the Vikings would lean more into the run and be more of a run-first team. I don't think that's the case. Because the Juwan Jennings signing, yes, it does help your run game, having that big slot who can block. But also now this gives KOC the ability to just go 11 personnel and spam it at a high level. I mean, you got Jefferson, you got Addison, now you got Juwan Jennings in there. It is truly, one of the more unsolvable problems for defenses. And also another reason why I think that the Vikings will lean still heavily on the pass is because the biggest strength of this entire Vikings roster, not just offensively, but the entire roster, is the wide receiver room. It is the best in the National Football League. The big three that they have is by far the best in the league. You got the best wide receiver in Jefferson, so you're obviously going to be throwing the ball a lot. Then you got Jordan Addison and Juwan Jennings complimenting him, and it is truly a match made in heaven for the Minnesota Vikings. Now, I would love for KOC to lean more on the run and, get Jordan Mason, get Aaron Jones a lot more touches, but also you just think about the playmakers you have. I'd rather have Addison get the ball than Jordan Mason. I'd rather have Juwan Jennings get the ball more than Jordan Mason. I'm sure KOC knows that. He knows where his elite playmakers are. They're on the perimeter. Now, maybe KOC can do a better job of manufacturing a run game, getting the quick slants going, getting maybe wide receiver screens. We can get these wide receivers early touches in the football game, so then when it does come to time to run the football late in the fourth quarter, they're more willing to do that, and they got that little extra chip because, wide receivers, they like looking at the stat sheet. If they see they got 5 catches for 80 yards, maybe Juwan Jennings would be more willing to go lay that block on a defensive player. Now, I think, though, the Vikings will be an improved running team. At least it should be. Your offensive line is set. You got 5 good offensive linemen you feel comfortable rolling out there. You brought in Max Bredesen, so you should have an upgrade at fullback, honestly, compared to what C.J. Ham has been for the last couple of years. Then with Juwan Jennings, even when you are in 11 personnel, but him in the big slot, maybe you got Josh Oliver at tight end, you kind of can manufacture having 7 offensive linemen out there on the field where you also come out in 11 personnel that spreads out the defense. You can run it right up the gut. So they should be an improved running team. I just don't think people understand really who Kevin O'Connell is. His bread and butter, why he has this job, is because of his passing game concepts and how elite he is. I don't think he's going to completely do a 180. Maybe it's a slight uptick by 3 or 4 percent compared to what it's been in the past couple of years, because it's been around 60-40 in favor of the pass. Maybe it's closer to 55-45, but to just say the Vikings will be a run-first offense won't be the case this year in Minnesota, but it should be improved. They should be more efficient, which would obviously help out this team a whole lot. But if you guys made it to the end of today's show, hit me with a skull down below in the comment section. Appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. The video coming out later today. So shout out to all the real ones, and we'll see you guys next time. As always, let's go Vikes.